I know that so many business owners, when they start the new year, they always typically have on their bingo card, their vision board, whatever it may be that you do to plan out your new year goals, is have creating long form content or getting onto a new platform. And if that's you, I'm right there with you as well. As you can see, I'm filming a long form piece of content right now, but it's also something that I see a lot of business owners don't really follow through with because they get to start doing it and then they're like, okay, this actually takes a shit ton of work and I don't have the time to actually do that on top of the social media platform that I'm posting on, or like spending hours creating carousels, like whatever it may be. And if that's the case for you, then I am very excited for a conversation that we're going to have right now, because it is going to be all about the strategy that I use with my clients on how to get them onto a long form piece of content platform, whether that is onto their blog or onto YouTube, whatever long form content that you have in mind. And that is all going to be repurposing from social media content that you've already done. So this is going to be repurposing from short form content onto long form content. And that is something that I don't hear a lot of people talk about. When it comes to repurposing, there is a lot of noise and chatter out there about how to repurpose from long form and go down to short form. Many people start with, a YouTube or a podcast episode, for instance, and then they trickle down from there and repurpose that, which absolutely is possible. 100%. I do that as well. However, for a lot of business owners, like I've been saying, there is a large hurdle for how you can get from that level in your business to where you are creating short form content and you want to take that next step to do long form content. A lot of us feel very familiar with creating content on Instagram and like sticking with the platform that we know and we love, or, sometimes love, maybe have a love-hate relationship with. And then going, okay, where do I go from here? So if that is you, I want you to know that like you 100% already have the bones there to work with. And this is a strategy that I use for my clients, but it's also the strategy that I'm using for myself for my content creation in 2026. So I had a podcast. I think I launched it in 2023, so it was 3 years ago at this point. And I really loved creating it. And how I was doing it was I was repurposing from short form content that I had, because I had at that point been posting on Instagram for a few years. So I had plenty of content to work with and definitely a lot of frameworks to pull from, and did that onto the podcast. Now I'm at a point to where I'm ready to get back into that. I feel even more confident and honed in on the message and what I want to talk about and all the things. And so when it came down to me deciding, okay, I want to take this a step further, and really, instead of thinking in terms of long form content of a podcast, I want to think about it in terms of YouTube. So how am I going to actually make that happen for myself? Because I have over 10 clients that I support solely myself. I have a life and things that I do outside of my business. So I don't have the time to become a YouTuber, so to say, or like to become a TikToker, to become a like true content creator outside of the content that I'm already creating to keep myself visible on Instagram, the content that I'm creating for my clients, all the things. If you are a coach or you have your own clients that you support in some way, then I'm sure that you absolutely relate, because it's like, yes, you are a business owner, but you also are a content creator because you have to market your business. Now, step one of what I think you should do, well, let's backtrack a little bit. I lied a little bit. There's a caveat to the step one. So you definitely do need to be confident in your message, or have an idea of, okay, what is the overall sense of this platform gonna be? So whether you are moving on to a podcast, or you're moving on to a blog, or you're moving on to doing YouTube, whatever long form piece of content you're creating, what is the overall arch of it? For example, for myself, you would think that it would be content repurposing that I'm going to talk about, because I'm a content repurposer and that is what my whole business is, especially on Instagram. It's all about content repurposing. However, I want to take a different stance with it on these new platforms. And so I want to be talking less about how to repurpose content to be like, okay, here's exactly what you're going to pull from this carousel post to have this be your email subject line, something like that, and have it be more like behind the scenes type of stuff, like exactly what I'm talking about today, like really the processes and everything that happens before and after. And I came to this conclusion, which now we're at step one, is because I audited all of the content that I have created before. And that probably sounds like a lot, but it's not. It's a lot quicker than sitting, which is probably what you were going to do. It's a lot quicker than sitting with ChatGPT and being like, hey, so I want to become a TikToker and give me a bunch of ideas of videos that I need to create. While that's great, you're going to come up with like 37 different ideas. Whether you like all of them, that's going to be iffy. But they're all brand new ideas that you're then having to figure out your, whatever it is on, and then create and execute on all those ideas. Whereas if you use a repurposing framework, you're pulling from ideas and things that you've already said and feel so strongly about that it should be super easy for you to yap on for a couple minutes on camera or whatever it is that you're doing, whether you're going to write a long form blog post about it. So that is why I went back and I just did a scroll through my whole Instagram feed. I think I scrolled back to like 2022. So that's like 4 years of content that I scrolled through. I'm looking for posts that I have done that I think would translate well onto YouTube. And I know that I don't want to do the how-to. So that took out a lot of posts that I didn't even need to look at or consider, that I could just swipe right by. And I know that I want to first see like what is the type of content that I'm finding my audience engages with the most. And that's where I found it was anywhere that I was talking about behind the scenes of business or behind the scenes of my processes. And in doing so, you're probably going to notice, like with long form content, I think it's so much easier to be pulling from carousel posts or posts where you really went in on something. Like pulling from a super quick B-roll is not going to be easy to come up with a whole framework for a long form piece of content. So I mostly was looking for like my carousel posts and posts, like I said, where I was doing behind the scenes or that I noticed got a lot of engagement. And from that, I realized, okay, so this lifestyle type of stuff. So from there, I was able to pull out 17 different ideas of pieces of content that I already have that I can translate the framework into a long form piece of content. I have this all in a beautiful Notion board organized, and with these ideas, because having 17 ideas is great, but then it's like, okay, well, how am I actually going to execute on these? And then my brain was like, what makes sense to post and talk about first? And so I did create 3 different content pillars. So I've got one that's business behind the scenes, I do have a content repurposing one, and then I do have one that's like expat and life in Germany. So one that's like lifestyle, one that's like business, and one that is like full-blown content repurposing. And from there, that made it so much easier to look at these and go, okay, 17 ideas. If I do 1 video a week, which we will see how that goes, that's like over 3 months worth of videos, which is like, okay, that seems so much more doable than yelling at ChatGPT or AI or whatever you're doing to be like, hey, so I want to become a YouTube star, figure that out for me. And you're going to hate everything that it is. And what I love is that since this is content that I'm going to be repurposing from, and content and messages and things that I've already said before, I already feel hella passionate about all these things to where I know I 100% can yap for 10 minutes or so about what these topics are. And since a lot of these posts are actually ones that I pulled from years ago, I have so many new ideas and things since then that I can share on and like reframe. I just want to look through some of these ideas and like what I can share with you. One that I have in my business behind the scenes bucket is it's a carousel post that I had done on the most powerful investments that got me to where I am today as a business owner. And I think that would go great onto YouTube because it's like a cool storytelling type of thing, but it's also set tips of I've got in here 6 different slides of things like that I tangibly did. And so that right there are my 6 points of what I'll talk about in the YouTube video. That right there becomes my outline. Now, none of these that I'm turning into an exact script. I think it depends on what works for you and your like style for how you need to create. For me, having a script and just like with how I'm recording, I'm not trying to be sitting here and reading. I want like things to come through naturally. For me, it helps like just to have the outline of, okay, this is what I just need to make sure that I can brush on. And like I could just have it up on my screen to be like, okay, so I know I brushed on that, talked about that, here's the next thing. Because I don't, for me, why I love long form content is that I can be super long-winded, and it's actually difficult, so to say, for me to create short form content on Instagram and on social media, which is why I really am super excited that I'm finally putting the push full speed into doing long form content, because I have so much that I want to share and so much that I want to say. I'm an open book. I love to share things. It helps me to have an outline at least to go off of, so I like don't totally go off on tangents. And while I'm open to that happening, I don't want to like go off on one and then I never go back to the main point. Now, you're probably going, okay, well, having those 17 ideas is great, but then you need to like sit down and execute on those 17 ideas. And that is where, again, I think having the repurposing framework makes it a lot easier to execute on, because if you're instead going to ChatGPT and he's giving you 17 new ideas, then you really are having to think through and come up with new ideas on the thing that it is going to be that they want you to talk about. So if it's something that you've never really talked about before in content or whatever, you really are having to prepare more to create that piece of content, or maybe you do need to feel more comfortable to have a full script or something, and you're probably going to have AI create that script for you. And it might not even be like what you truly believe or what you really feel about the topic or whatever. And I just feel like it isn't as authentic, because that's the other reason why people consume long form content, is because they are like interested in you and they're interested in your take that you have on the topic. That's what keeps people subscribing and coming back to your podcast or to your blog or your TikTok, whatever that. Then executing on these ideas makes it a lot easier to then have that framework that you've already created to go off of. So you don't even have to make like a true official outline. If you just have the link to that social media post, you can just pop that up and like just be swiping through that while you're recording or whatever to be going off of. That makes it like coming into a whole production so much easier and so much quicker. The true behind the scenes of how this current episode has come about is I actually was recording this all as an Instagram story because it just came up and I was like, okay, I've got time to do a story. Let's talk about this right now. I feel like talking about it. And then I had like 10 slides and I was like, okay, I've got 10 slides of this. This is 10 minutes long. I'm not going to post this to my stories. Let's just get this out and record this right now. So yeah, if it's something that you really do feel passionately about in your business, then it should be no problem for you to be able to just record and get that done. Once you've done the recording, like execution, creation of that long form piece of content, then what you're doing from there is literally just like very similar to what you've been doing for Instagram or whatever social media, like short form piece of content you were doing. Like you've got the long form from there. You just need to translate it into what it needs to put it out there. So whether that's the blog or the podcast or the YouTube, like you need the show notes, you need a caption, but like you've been writing captions for years, so you should be able to get that done. But yeah, I, as you can tell, feel very passionately about this topic because I do think it is very important for us to get outside of the bubble of Instagram. And if Instagram is doing great for you, that is awesome. And that makes me say even more that you need to branch out onto other platforms, because if Instagram is working fabulous for you, imagine how many more people you can be reaching with your business if you started repurposing that content onto a different platform. So if this is you at all and you are like, yes, okay, I'm gonna get into long form content or I'm gonna get into a different platform this year, I am very excited for you. Please pop into my DMs and be like, Anna, we are in this ride together. We're going to be long form queens in 2026 because I want to follow you, subscribe to you, whatever it is, and cheer you on because I think that is awesome. Love that for us. And if you also are someone to where you're like, this sounds fabulous, but how the F do I actually do this? One, I want you to know it truly is easy. And like this process that like I outlined for you for how I got to this point literally took me like 30 minutes. It is not difficult at all. But if you want like a little partner to do that for you, this is literally my love language. I freaking love and obsessed with content repurposing. I have been doing this for 6 years now. It is about to be my 6-year business anniversary. It might already be by the time I put this out there. And so like, I love what I do and I would love to be that repurposing partner for you. Doing this type of repurposing is honestly my favorite. Repurposing in this way with this framework allows me to use like both sides of my repurposing brain that I love, to where it's like the really strategic and like auditing and systems and organization side of it all, plus the creativity of it all to be like, okay, well, like, here's how are we going to make this into an actual great idea that we can turn into this piece of content, and like, what are we going to do with that? That I love doing. So I would love to partner with you on that. I hope that this has been helpful. I am super excited for my own long form content journey in 2026. If you are doing this as well, let me know so I can follow along your journey, and definitely stick along for my journey as well, because you like now you know the behind the scenes as to how all of this future content is coming about. Thank you for sitting down with me. I will talk to you very soon.